Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to View from the Queen Vic. We are your fun and positive podcast about all things EastEnders. And we are very excited today because we have a special guest. We love when we have special guests, but this is our first listener guest. And we're so happy because it's Kieran O'Driscoll. Kieran, welcome to the
Thank you
program.
very much, Gina. Thanks, Marita, for
Welcome.
having me. I'm really excited to be here with you this evening.
We're so happy to have you on because you are a lecturer, you're a writer, you're an author, and you've done radio, which we can definitely tell because we were, talking to you before the show, and you just have such a great, great rapport already. You seem to really be great on radio. So we're just thrilled to have you on, and you have a long history with EastEnders. We were talking before the show that you've kind of started watching around 1990, you were saying, but had a history with the show before as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Obviously, it started in February 1985 on screen, and I was 21 going on 22 at that stage, and I was aware of EastEnders and that it was a really sort of popular new soap, very edgy, kind of very gritty and so on. And at the time, it was a huge contrast with Coronation Street, which still had its more sort of traditional northern working class values. There was sort of a real edginess about EastEnders. I wasn't watching it at the time, but I was aware, for example, of friends at work, or my younger brother John was watching it, so he would talk about certain storylines or certain characters. So I remember Michelle getting married to Lofty, Michelle having her daughter Vicky by Dirty Den, and Dirty Den serving Angie the divorce papers. I was aware of all those storylines without following it because they had such an impact, and there weren't as many soaps back then, But I started watching it around October 1990, So my sort of classic EastEnders days, the days I really enjoyed it were maybe from 1990 to the late 90s, And then I sort of stopped watching it, but I dipped in and out of it again over the years. But I started watching it again on a very committed full-time basis about 6 years ago. So since then, I haven't missed an episode, It's much easier to stay watching EastEnders because, in the 90s or 80s, if you didn't record the program, you would never see it again, or if you didn't see the omnibus. I used to love the Sunday omnibus of EastEnders, so I wouldn't watch it during the working week, but I'd sit down on a Sunday at about 2 p.m. and watch it. It was 2 episodes and then eventually 3 episodes, and that's when I really enjoyed it, and I have some very favorite characters and storylines from that early 90s era,
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, being American, it was even harder because like now we have BritBox, which is brilliant. I mean, we get it like an hour after you guys get it, which is just
amazing.
I just blows my mind because I watched it on our local PBS station and then BBC America, and then and I lived in different cities, so I'd have to like hunt to find it. And so, I would miss years here and there, but, now it's just so easy to be able to watch
Technology has changed, everything is possible nowadays on the internet.
Yeah, it's so accessible now to watch any television show from anywhere in the world. It really is amazing because I remember, I was a big fan of Buffy and Dawson's Creek, and we had to wait months for those to get aired here after they'd been aired over in the States. So yeah, it's definitely, the world has changed in a lot of ways, but the way we watch television is definitely more accessible.
I watch EastEnders on the RTE player, which is great. So it's kind of put up each evening, kind of just maybe half an hour after it airs on the BBC. So it's great. I might watch it a day later or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially with like that kind of whole box set situation. I'm actually loving it. I know it's controversial, but I'm kind of loving it because it kind of probably doesn't affect me as much in the States, but I do kind of love being able to watch the episodes and then form my opinion rather than kind of see everybody's opinion online, and then watch the episodes. So I'm kind of enjoying this period when I can, kind of go on later and see what people are saying and stuff. So,
We're
and
in an era of very intense interest in the soaps. I mean,
yeah,
years ago, just before the internet, if you go back to the 90s, you had these soap magazines, like Inside Soap is still very popular as a
Yeah,
magazine.
that's
yeah,
right.
But I mean, there's kind of intense spoilers, intense speculation, and
mm-hmm,
that, you know,
mm-hmm,
it's changed. I think it must be much harder for producers of EastEnders now and for
yeah,
the script writers and actors
mm-hmm,
to keep things secret
yeah,
because journalists are so intense. Like, you remember
Yeah,
recently there was a report in the Sun, oh, they've seen a fire and fire engines on the
mm-hmm,
set of
mm-hmm,
EastEnders. So everybody knows, oh, there's going to be a big fire, or, you know, you
right,
see a
yeah,
scene with Martin and Linda and guns and that. There's
right,
speculation. I mean, there's just this huge, intense kind of speculation. And
mm-hmm,
I'm always tempted. I read that website, Digital Spy, rather than Inside Soap, you know.
mm-hmm,
yeah,
And
I
I'm
do as well.
always reading ahead, you know,
mm-hmm,
and I think it kind of spoils it to a certain extent. Okay, Digital Spy won't reveal kind of everything, but they reveal quite a lot, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, spoiler culture online especially is very intense because people
Yeah.
stay up to midnight for the spoilers, and as soon as
Yes.
they go out, everyone's screenshotting them and posting them, and yeah, it's very intense. And I remember just watching EastEnders in the 90s, and like I would only ever speak about it with my family or my friends, and it was just so different then. There wasn't all this noise around it
mm-hmm,
that you get now.
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Mhm.
So yeah, I do prefer to watch it and then discuss it because
yeah,
that's what I do. I rarely ever tweet when I'm watching EastEnders because I'm too busy concentrating on it
mm-hmm.
to tweet
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
I'm watching it.
Yeah, it has kind of been a relief these last few weeks for me to, to not feel like I have to tweet. I don't have to tweet everything anyway, but, to not have to
No.
feel like I have to tweet my every thought, on the episodes and kind of wait till the end of the week and maybe tweet one or two things. And then, Marita and I were saying we love having this podcast for so many reasons, but it also gives us a forum for us to discuss our opinions. And people can agree or disagree, but we have a very civil discussion here,
Yes.
and then,
Yeah.
we don't
Absolutely.
always agree, but we kind of get our opinions out and talk about them. And it's a relief,
Yeah.
to be able to do that. And it's great to
Absolutely.
have you on too, because I think some of the storylines we're going to talk about this week are some storylines that we all really enjoy. And I love that. But we're going to ask you first a few, your history with the EastEnders. Who's your favorite character? We're going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Okay. Well, actually, you're not putting me on the spot at all, Gina, because there's no competition for me. Despite all the characters that have been in EastEnders over the last almost 37 years, for me, the Queen of Walford, even though she hasn't been in it for a long time, is undoubtedly Michelle Fowler. And I mean, the original Michelle, that's what I mainly wanted to talk about in classic EastEnders, I'm just getting out something I've written here actually about Michelle. I was a bit nervous, so I wanted to remind myself of the little few things I wanted to say about Michelle. I've taken notes on Michelle Fowler. But basically, let me see. Uh, yeah. So if I was to talk about Michelle and storylines and characters from classic 90s EastEnders that really impacted on me personally, I suppose it would be the storylines that involved Michelle Fowler in her early 20s, in the early 90s, There's one character who was a close friend of Michelle in EastEnders from 1991 to 1993. And that was, I wonder if you remember Rachel Kaminsky.
Kaminsky. I was just
She
going to
was a
say, yes.
university lecturer.
And she's a very, like, if people have been watching a long time, they're like, who, because, yeah,
Yeah,
but
I'm like, who? I don't remember
I
who
remember
that is.
She was on it when you were very young, Marita. It would have been, I was just doing a little bit of online research earlier today just to see exactly when Rachel was in it. And it was from March 91 to March 93. So she had two very intense years where she was quite a major character. And then she left and she hasn't been back since. But all those years later, her kind of interactions with Michelle and other characters have still made a huge impact on me.
yeah,
But
and I remember her well too, because she was kind of a good force for Michelle. as far as, you know, being educated, wanting Michelle to continue her education. So that's why she stands out for me.
Me too. Well, she was a university lecturer and she
Mhm,
came across, she came in and she was very, very different to the people of Walford. She was this very middle class, highbrow, intellectual university lecturer. She bought this house I just checked today online, it was 55 Victoria Road. And it was she, as you say, Gina, who encouraged Michelle to think about going back to university. And I later did that too, because I'm just a few years older than what Michelle's character was.
mhm,
So I was about maybe 28 when the character of Rachel came into EastEnders.
mhm,
And I'd been thinking at the time of taking a career break from my job in local government and going back to university. I really wanted to study something at university. And
mhm,
when I saw Michelle going back as sort of a mature student, a few years later, I went back as well. So I'm sure that storyline with Rachel and Michelle really kind of impacted on me. And
mhm,
Michelle became a teacher. I became a teacher as well of English, French,
mhm,
languages and that. So, but I think with Rachel, there was a very interesting exploration of class differences in EastEnders. It's mainly a very working class soap. And we always think of Britain as being rigidly defined by these kind of social category distinctions from royalty and aristocracy through the upper classes,
Yeah.
the middle and
mhm,
the lower and working classes. And then because of that, Rachel, if you remember, she clashed with people like Sharon and
mhm,
Pauline and that and others, and she was seen as quite uppity and she wasn't part of the Walford in group.
mhm,
Sharon felt she was a kind of a snooty cow, that
mhm.
was Sharon's way of
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
said, oh, Michelle, she's only going around with you because you're a little bit of rough and she wants to
right.
be street cred and that. And Pauline hated her for a while. Yet she managed to become a very close friend of Michelle. And if you remember, as well as encouraging Michelle academically, she also became a very close friend of Kathy Beale. Do you remember
Yeah.
when Wilmot Brown came back into it, he started harassing Kathy a couple of years after raping her. He sent her a tape, and Kathy was terrified, and it was Rachel who went with Kathy to a hotel to meet Wilmot Brown, and
Mhm,
Rachel was absolutely fearless and very articulate and put him in his
mhm,
place. Similarly, Rachel helped Michelle to stand up to some dodgy company that were trying to force her to sell timeshares.
mhm,
Rachel went along and, she kind of spoke to the people and she was very sort of kind of putting them in their place and so on. If
mhm,
you remember, she also became friendly with Mark Fowler to the
mhm,
extent that Rachel and Mark ended up in bed together, but Rachel only found out after the event that Mark was HIV positive.
mhm. Yeah, I remember
Um,
that because that
I
was a
just thought Rachel's character was a very interesting look into contrasts between different social classes and relationships between different social groups, be they antagonistic or friendly. And she was only there for 2 short years, but the character has always stayed in my memory.
mhm,
I feel I took Rachel's advice by going back to college as well,
mhm,
and I've modeled myself on people like her.
mhm,
Michelle is still a teacher, apparently,
mhm,
and I'm still a teacher. So
mhm.
I always regretted that Rachel was never brought back in some form.
Yeah, and that's amazing too because like I love Michelle. As I said, I grew up with the kids, Michelle and Ian, Calvin and Sharon. I was the same age as them when EastEnders came on. So my heart is with Michelle. I mean, I was saying before the show that she was a strong woman when she was 15 years old, and having Vicky and her relationship with Den and everything. And I remember Rachel really well. And I was reminded of her Kathy, relationship too. And also that she inspired you, that Michelle inspired you to continue your studies. I mean, that's what soaps are supposed to be about, is,
Yeah.
sort of helping us.
Reflect real life,
Yes.
absolutely, and make us think about real life. For example, if they deal with an issue like domestic violence with Chantel or
Mhm,
Isaac's schizophrenia at the moment, it's all to help people, to
mhm,
get us to think about people who might have similar problems, domestic
mhm,
violence, schizophrenia,
Yeah,
how we can
definitely.
support other people, get
mhm,
rid of stigmas.
mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly, and especially with Isaacs, that we're going to get into. And do
And there
you
was
know?
also
Oh,
Sorry, just one thing. There was also the idea that Rachel, as a lecturer, was in a very precarious position, that she didn't seem to have a permanent kind of lectureship and that, and I think her job went at one stage and she ended up maybe working in the cafe and selling on the market stall. And so
right.
that precarity is very much a part of academia as well, and language teaching. I've had that precarity, I'm on contract work as well. So even 30 years ago, there were the same issues in academia and so on. So I think Rachel lectured in English literature, and one of Michelle's subjects was history, And I think Michelle failed her first year, but she repeated her exams and she ended up graduating and so on. And Michelle ended up in a relationship, do you remember, with Jeff, a university lecturer, an older man, but she didn't go ahead with the wedding to him,
Right. Right. And I mean, you're giving me such nostalgia here because, like, I love Michelle so much, and we don't get much chance to talk about her because she's referenced a little bit on the show, like between Martin and Sharon, that the show will reference that really Martin is like Sharon's family because Michelle and Sharon were so close, and best friends. And, she goes to stay with Michelle, every once in a while and things like that. But we don't get a chance to talk about her, as much. And I just, she's one of my favorites, from even to now. As you say, she's not on anymore, but she still has such a great resonance. And I would love for the original Michelle to come back.
Me too.
And Susan Tully has said she's doing a lot of directing these days. She's not acting so much. So she said she's never going to come back, but you never know. So we hold out hope. that
Exactly. I would love her to come back, but it doesn't seem likely.
Yeah.
At the moment, anyway.
It doesn't.
I mean, Jenna Russell was excellent a few years ago, but it was hard to accept her as Michelle when you were used to the original Michelle,
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, there's some roles you just can't recast, and the original ones, no, you just shouldn't touch them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some recasts work, others don't,
No, I totally agree. And do you have a favorite family?
Favorite family? I think the Slaters would be one of my favorite families, and I kind of miss all the Slaters. We really just have Kat nowadays, and of course we did have Mo and Stacey, and but the Slaters originally, when you had Lynn and all of those together, that was an iconic storyline with Kat being mother of Zoe and so on. By the way, I don't know if you watched Redwater. Do you remember that? The Irish EastEnders did. They did Cat and Alfie went to Ireland to find Summer's son.
Yeah, I've got the DVDs of that, but I don't think I've seen it all. I need to watch it again.
Did you think of it, Marita? Did you like it? Because I was disappointed in it, I have to say.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed in it myself. I thought, like, the way that they kind of ruined that for Cat in terms of finding this long lost child and him turning out to be, not a very nice person at all. Yeah, I just think they took something away from Cat when they did that.
I don't think it was the success they hoped it would be, I don't think the critical reaction was good. I mean, they didn't kind of make any sort of follow-up to it,
No, it didn't do very well in the viewing figures either, I don't think.
The idea that Kat's other long-lost son that she never knew about was actually now a priest, and that he was a bit like Grey. He was another Grey, actually, wasn't he? He was a serial killer, and it just didn't work for me.
No, I didn't particularly like it myself, to be honest. But I mean, I still enjoyed it because it's it's Cat and Alfie and they're iconic EastEnders characters. So but I do miss the spin-offs because they used to do a lot of them, and these days we don't really get that. I mean, we don't really get two-hander episodes a lot anymore either. So I wish they would bring them back on a regular basis, like doing little spin-offs and things like that. Even if it's just for BBC iPlayer. Yes.
Yeah.
I love the two-handers, all right, and I miss those.
Yeah, we've been talking about how much we miss those two-handers. Like I always say, I think the best EastEnders episode ever was the Ethel and Dot two-hander, which is just like a masterpiece. but the Sharon and Phil two-hander from the early 2000s was amazing. Even when they did the sort of three couples last year, when they did, it was Ben and Callum, Sharon and Phil, and then Mick and Linda. That was amazing, where it was all kind of over one night and they all sort of stayed up and talking into the morning. I would love for EastEnders to do more of those.
Yeah, I love those overnight episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think those are some of the best, where we kind of see what happens the next day. And, and so we've been talking about, we love the show and we love it now, but one of the things we'd love to see is more two-handers. That's our request,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're so dramatic.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, and that, yeah, we ask for things on the show and sometimes we get them. A lot of times we get them, actually. So
Yeah.
we try to put our thoughts out to the universe. But it's interesting that you mentioned the Slaters, because they are like a family we wanted to be built up again, because as you say, it's really Gene left in that house now, because Kat is with Phil, really. And we see Gene and Kat together, of course, at the laundrette and stuff, but Stacy will be back in the fall. But now Mo's gone for we don't know how long, looks pretty permanent. So I would love one of the sisters to come back, like Little Mo.
Little Mo.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be great to have Little Mo back.
Yeah.
And I think bringing her back and would just change the whole dynamic of the Slaters and like refresh them again. So it's like the Mitchells, if they brought back Louise or even Courtney. Like Courtney's in her early 20s. She's a legacy character. I don't see why they wouldn't bring back like Courtney or Michelle's son. That Grant's like
Mark
son.
Jr. Yeah.
I mean, because these are legacy characters, and they're at that age where you can do so much with them. Like they brought Dottie back into it. I definitely think they should maybe consider bringing back Courtney and is it Mark?
Mark Jr. Yeah.
Mark Jr. Yeah.
That's always how I remember him, because and we've been saying more younger, like sort of more older and more younger characters we need as well. Sort of the because we've got Patrick and then now we have Vi, but we don't have like the sort of Ethel Lou Beale dynamic that we used to have, and then the younger sort of teenage side that we kind of need. So that would be great.
I love the older characters. I mean, Patrick Truman is a wonderful character, and Violet Highway is a great new addition. She's a real sort of battle axe, but she's also more nuanced than that.
Yeah, she's really come in and tugged at my heartstrings, and I know a lot of people would be thinking, what? Why? Because she gets so much negative attention, but I really do like that character. And just because I like the character, it doesn't mean I agree with anything that she says to like Ben or Callum in terms of like homophobic connotations, but that it's just like representing that whole, the way that people of that generation talk. And I know it's the younger generations are obviously going to have an issue with it, and I totally understand that, but it doesn't mean that they can't show that on screen.
Right. And
it reminds me of Coronation. Sorry, Gina, she reminds me of Coronation Street battle axes like Lena Sharples and all of those, Phyllis Pierce.
Evelyn, to a certain extent, who's on Corey now. Lou Beale. I mean, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago on the show that Lou Beale used to say stuff that you couldn't even put in scripts now. I mean, she was so racist when Michelle was dating Kelvin. I don't know if you remember those scenes, Kieran, but oh my gosh, I mean, she was the stuff she would say. So, and Lou Beale is a beloved character, but some of the stuff she used to say was absolutely horrendous. So, and sometimes she wasn't corrected either, because they were all living in Lou's house and they couldn't come back at her the way they always wanted to, for her views. So,
Just New Offer, but I've never seen it with her in it as it were.
Yeah.
I know she was a real battle axe, back in the day.
I mean, she had definite layers. Like she was a great grandmother to to Michelle and to Ian, she could be really awful, to Arthur and Pauline. I mean, she just constantly interfered in their marriage, and, could be really bad with Kathy and Pete, and could be super racist. And, so she had really she had her downsides for sure, but then she was a great matriarch. So I think people are kind of forgetting that was very homophobic in the first couple of years.
Really? Yeah, you said that, and I was very surprised.
Yeah, very homophobic. I mean,
Why is that?
she had the Bible says, that kind of thing. So she would have, she would have her Bible quotes, and so when she had that scene, I think it was that year or two ago when she was talking to Whitney about Ben and Callum, and she was talking about being a little bit jealous of seeing Ben and Callum together. And she was, Dot was like, well, you can be happy with Leo and Callum can be happy with Ben. And I was like, wow, what a journey this woman has been on,
They haven't even given Violet a chance to be redeemed,
right,
in terms of that, because like she's not been in it that long, and I'm sure the more she's around like Ben and Callum, I think that'll die away at some point.
Yeah,
they haven't really given her a chance. They've just jumped on it,
I know,
straight away. Where why not give the character a chance to grow as a person and realize that the things that she says and the opinions that she has aren't necessarily, politically correct, and at the time that we're living in, they need to give her a chance for development.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in EastEnders at the moment. They seem to be juggling quite a lot, don't they, in the 20-minute episodes, So we haven't seen, I mean, I feel there's a lot more to Violet Highway than meets the eye. Even the story she said about Johnny threw her out of her flat, there could be a lot more to that than meets the eye. Maybe she lost her flat or something, maybe she's in some sort of financial difficulty. Who knows? There could be some backstory there.
Yeah. Definitely some backstory to come that we just don't know about. So, I'm going to reserve jumping on the hate train. I just think it's ridiculous. They need to give it time.
Yeah. And I also think there was that line that it was very brief, but she was meeting with Phil before Ben and Callum got married. And she was talking about, Callum being gay. And she said, I think my Freddie was that way inclined. So that her husband may have been gay. And it got totally lost, I feel like. But it really stuck out at me because we've been saying with these 20-minute episodes that there's no throwaway lines, that they wouldn't just throw that line in for no reason. So I think there's going to be a backstory there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're giving her a chance on this show to, to develop, I'd say.
I mean, she's growing on me. I kind of didn't like her at first, but as the episodes evolve and as the weeks march on, I find I'm kind of getting to like Violet. I can see that that underneath that sort of tough exterior, that she's actually, quite a good person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she showed real emotion at Balaam's wedding.
Yeah.
And if she was homophobic, she wouldn't have even turned up to their wedding.
Yeah, I mean, she cried during that wedding, like just really full-on crying. So, I think there's more to her.
Yeah, there's more to her than meets the eye. And I get why people don't like, certain dialogue, but it doesn't mean that she won't be called out on it at some point.
No. And I think also, I mean, Pete Lawson loves writing for her, and he's a gay man. So I think that needs to be pointed out, that several of the men who are gay men love writing for her. So, there's got to be more to this story, I think.
Definitely.
And so, Kieran, we would love to have you go through the week with us.
Thank you.
I know you're a great listener of the show, and we would love that because like the Isaac storyline we are loving here, and I know that you said that's one of your favorite storylines when we were talking during the week, and so to that storyline we've got this week, we've got Ash and Peter which we're kind of conflicted on Peter, which you probably know because you listen to this show. But I did
Yeah.
think he's gotten some layers this week with talking about Lucy. So I feel like there's a little bit of redemption going on here, you know?
Yeah.
I do think so, yeah. Peter is becoming a little bit of a nicer person. He was when he came back into it. Since he came back into it, you know, last year, he's come across as very sort of selfish and sort of very cynical, hasn't he? You know,
Yeah.
and not treating people very well, especially not treating Bobby very well, you know, and feeling kind of, I suppose, an ongoing resentment towards Bobby because of his part in Lucy's death, you know. But in recent episodes, like since Bobby and Dana got together, and then when Dana walked away from Bobby, you know, I think Peter really stepped up and showed a very good, caring, kind of brotherly, loving side, you know. It's like in a way he has sort of made his peace, you know, with Bobby, Bobby's hand in Lucy's death, you know. I mean, it
Yeah.
was an accident at the end of the day, you know.
Right. And we loved those scenes last week. And how it finally seems like he's getting some layers that we've been wanting for like a year, you know, because he's been on since the like after the boat crash and
Yeah.
you know, or before actually. He came on during that week. So it would be, you know, it's great that finally I think they're showing us like what Lucy's death has done to him, you know.
Yeah, because before he came back, he had so many layers, you know. He's a legacy character. We've seen him be born and grow up on the show, so we know that's not all there is to his character. So it was just waiting for that depth to come and be shown on screen, and I was so relieved when we got that scene with him and Dana, because it was really touching, and it did show that he does care about Bobby for all his bravado and the things that he says. I mean, he obviously does love Bobby.
Yeah, and I thought that really, you know, his issues with Lucy came out with Ash this week, and I thought,
yeah,
like that was really good. I thought the stuff with the Carters was always, you know, we love the Carters here. I thought we love, you know, sort of Frankie and Nancy's dynamic. We're a little afraid of what the storyline is going to do to that.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so I think that we're going to get into that a little bit, like what Zach, you know, Mick is probably going to be forced to take sides, I think, when like the truth inevitably comes out. And
yeah, I definitely think he's going to be forced to take sides, and I think he's going to take Frankie's side, to be honest, because I think it's going to cause, that's what's going to cause the most conflict, is obviously him taking her side when she's only been on the scene for however many months.
Right.
And obviously it's going to cause a lot of friction between him and Nancy, because we have been seeing some really like meaningful scenes between him and Nancy, and they're showing us how close their bond is, and definitely I think that's a little bit of foreshadowing of them, him being forced to choose between the both of them.
Yeah.
First time that we've seen Zach showing a more serious side, you know, apart from when he came into it first and he was talking to Sharon about how essentially he'd been psychologically abused by his father, you know, Sharon's father growing up and that. But mainly he was sort of a Jack the Lad kind of character, a bit like Alfie when he came into it first, you know. And this scene where Nancy was knocked down and so on, and you know, Zach's kind of terror and trying to cover up, you can see, and his guilt, you know, it's kind of the first time we're seeing a more serious storyline really for Zach, you know. And I feel sorry for Frankie as well.
I do too, bless her. She's really struggling with it.
And you can tell too, there's so many times she wants to tell Nancy. You can see her sort of apologizing and kind of stopping, and you know, I think if it had been up to her, she would have never done this whole hit and run thing. But you know, we were talking about this whole sort of deaf awareness that the show has, that she couldn't, you know, even understand Zach sometimes, and you know, when all the whole hit and run thing happened, and you know, it made it harder for her to she didn't know what to do, you know. And then once the sort of, you know, Zach lied about it, then they had to keep it going. And so it's too bad, because we're getting these great family scenes with them, I'm sure, just to rip us apart, you know, when the secret comes out. So
yeah, that's what they do. They give us all the sweet scenes and then stamp on our heart repeatedly.
Yeah, Kieran, you're a longtime EastEnders fan, so you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then we did get Kat and Phil and sort of Tommy this week, so that was a whole interesting dynamic, with Phil, of course, trying to replace kids in his life, as he does over and over again. And Tommy seems to be sort of taking Denny's place with the football, you know, the interest in football, and you know, Harry Redknapp being on and sort of saying that, you know, Tommy had talent. And this week it looks like Tommy's, you know, been accepted after his, you know, sort of trial, and where that's going to go with Phil and you know, Kat is very interesting to me, because Kat is still really standing up to him and saying, you better be there for all those soccer matches and, you know, football matches. And you know, so to me, it's interesting that she's still not being a doormat at all, you know.
Oh, no.
Phyllis Mesh's match, you know, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
when you think back to 20 years ago, how much he bullied poor Lisa, to the extent that she ended up shooting him, you know, and like he was very nasty to Kathy when he was with her and so on, you know. A lot of it was alcohol related. But I mean, Kat is maybe the first female partner who said that he's not going to take any nonsense from him. He has totally met his match, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, Sharon used to stand up to Phil, but then I feel like this last time around, she's stopped doing that. You know, it's like she just kind of became more an enabler in that relationship than she was the person that stood up to him, you know. But yeah, as you say, like Phil and Lisa, they were like my favorite couple at one time, because they had such incredible chemistry. Of course, the actors were dating in real life, you know, Steve and Lucy Benjamin. So they had incredible chemistry, but they were so toxic. And, you know, he was so awful to Lisa. It is amazing that the Kat can stand up to him. I think it's her experience and age too.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to see that as well. Like, to see Phil not be the one with the upper hand in the relationship.
Absolutely.
Is really refreshing, and I love their dynamics so much, and I think it's one of the best decisions that they've made in recent years on the show. So I definitely commend them for that decision. Whoever came up with that in the writers' room deserves a clap.
Absolutely, it was a master stroke.
Stroke of genius.
And then
for Tommy, you know.
And then we have Chelsea and Gray, which is, unfortunately, they have amazing chemistry. We've talked about this before on the show. I don't know, Kieran, how you feel about it, but if you didn't know Gray's background, you would think, oh, they're a nice couple.
Wouldn't you? Yeah.
Right?
To be honest, this new Chelsea, see, I can't remember the previous character of Chelsea because I wasn't watching it circa 2009, really. So I just don't like Chelsea since she came back into it. You know, she's coming across like as a really sort of, you know, self-centered, shallow, gold-digging kind of character, you know. And like Kim is kind of encouraging her, oh, you know, don't worry what Laura says about Gray and watching out, just be there for as long as you can, and maybe throw me some of the money if you can, you know. So it's like, you know, Chelsea is just in it really for what you can get out of it money-wise. Remember they showed her on Friday coming back into Gray with all of the shopping bags and all of that.
She's definitely enjoying that lifestyle. But it is going to be a dangerous thing for her, you know. So maybe that's what it's showing, the juxtaposition of, it's all good and well on the surface, but underneath, you know, it's a hellmouth that's evil.
I mean, when Gray came into it with Chantel, you did think, oh, they're a lovely, happy couple and so on, you know. Because Gray seems like, you know, the ideal son-in-law for Karen. Only Mitch kind of always suspected that there was something. you know, with Gray. But I don't think it's very realistic how, you know, after Chantel died, you know, and Mitch seemed to suspect him and Kira suspected him and all that just disappeared, you know. You know,
Yeah.
surely if they had that sort of suspicions, it would have been followed up on very strongly, you know. But there again, it's a soap. There's a reason for all these decisions, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not realistic that he would get away with it to the extent that he did, you know.
Yeah, I mean, because that he's took 3 people now, but you know that's what they do when they have serial killers on. So there's now a serial killer in Emmerdale, and it's, you know, it's the same thing. She killed one of the younger characters off, and it's the death was ruled as an accident. So she's probably going to kill more people before she gets found out.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting because, like, you know, I know this is like controversial whether, you know, people, you know, some people are unhappy or the serial killer, you know, sort of taking it from domestic violence. But, you know, I think it's, for me, I do think he's going to get his comeuppance, like, no question. Um, but it will be interesting to me if it's Chelsea because of who her dad is. You know, her father's a serial killer, and she is a lot like Chantel in certain ways. I mean, Chantel was very sweet and unselfish, but it would be interesting if Chelsea is the one to, you know, and Laura are the ones to take him down. You know, and we're going to talk a little bit about Laura later, but I thought bringing her in was not something that I expected, you know.
Neither.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that, like, none of us expected that. So that was a nice twist. And I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see where that goes. Um, and then, you know, of course, we have the Trumans, which I mean, I told Marita and I said on my Twitter, I cried so much during those first 2 episodes. Um, you know, because Marita and I have been talking on the show about having a family member with mental illness and what that does to the entire family. And I just felt like I was reliving everything.
Yeah.
Um,
I
you
felt
know,
exactly the same. I remember, I think it was Tuesday's episode when the credits started rolling, I had tears streaming
uh-huh,
down my face because it just, you know, it struck a nerve. It really reminded me of the experiences that I've had with my mum, and I think they did a really good job of being like respectful
uh-huh,
and caring, and how they it was executed, how they wrote it, how it was filmed, and you know, it broke my heart, the scene where Isaac get tasered. He's so vulnerable,
uh-huh,
and it literally, yeah, devastated me watching this week in that storyline, because as I said, it really hit
uh-huh,
close to home,
uh-huh.
and it's really a testament to the writing and the production of it that it affected me so badly, you
Uh-huh.
know.
Yeah.
Um,
And Karen, what did you think? Because I know you were telling me when we were talking, you know, during last week that you thought it was one of the best storylines.
I did. I really thought the whole Isaac storyline was really moving as well. You know, I think they've obviously done their research. You know, and I think Danielle Harold, who plays Lola, was saying that to the press that they had specialists from Mind UK who
Mm-hmm.
specialize in things like schizophrenia. They had those experts on set advising them and so on. And I
Mm-hmm.
think they've obviously done a lot of research for the
Mm-hmm.
storyline. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
felt
yeah,
very sorry for Isaac's mother, Cherie,
Mm-hmm.
in the last few weeks. Do you remember originally when Isaac came into it and started going out with Lola? It
Mm-hmm.
seemed as if before we knew that he had schizophrenia or a history of schizophrenia, it seemed as if Cherie was being very interfering and
Mm-hmm.
very controlling and
Mm-hmm.
so on and
Mm-hmm.
that. But now, in retrospect, when you see how bad the illness is and the
Mm-hmm.
devastating effects it has on Isaac and those around him, you can kind of see where Cherie was coming from
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
year. You know.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
I
like,
felt sorry for her.
I do too. It's like every nightmare she had has come true. You know, that she was, and it is not in any way Lola's fault. It's just, it's happened to go this way, you know. And so I think people are being really hard on Cherie. I think she
Yeah,
has seen this before. She has, I mean, when you see him being sectioned, I mean, being handcuffed to a bed, I mean, we don't, I have to say, in the States, we don't commit people anymore. They used to call it committing,
Yeah, we
someone.
used to call it that in Ireland as well,
Yeah,
committing.
committing someone. We don't do that here anymore. And so it's really hard for me to watch that. So like, for instance, my uncle was bipolar, and he had a really awful manic episode that I still remember because I was home from college that summer, and we got the call that, that he was in the state hospital. And so my mom had to go up there and advocated for him. And if she hadn't been allowed to reach him, they actually diagnosed him as schizophrenic. And my mother was like, no, he's bipolar. He's having this really awful episode. And if she hadn't been there, he would have been completely misdiagnosed. He would have been mistreated. I mean, it would have been horrible. And so for me to watch like someone not, Cherie not even being able to have a say in her son's treatment. I mean, when they said, well, we've discussed his treatment with him, and she's like, he doesn't know what day of the week it is. I just thought these conversations were just taking me back to, like
Yeah.
Rita said, it's like, I don't even know, how you handle something like that. And
My mum's been sectioned twice. And she's been in, like, she's spent 3 months in the mental health hospital twice in the last 3 years. And when she is sectioned, that's the doctor's call. We don't have a say in it, because they section her because she's a danger to herself and others. So, and that's why they do it, and the family don't have a say in that. And I do get why that is the case, because like when my mum was really bad, she was having hallucinations and talking to voices in her head consistently. She ran out on the road in front of traffic, running away from my brother, thinking that he was after her, that he was going to kill her. And she was really like going through major psychosis episodes. And I do think that in that situation, as much as it's heartbreaking to see that and to see someone so close to you get sectioned, I do think that it's necessary, because without that happening to my mum, she could have killed herself, she could have ran out in front of traffic, anything could have happened to her. So it definitely was a necessary thing, in my opinion, from my experience of it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the family not having a say in anything is like where I think I've seen kind of the downside of what it could have happened if my family hadn't been involved. So, it's just kind of like your own experience with it. But I was just kind of horrified by, and I've seen like Lisa was sectioned on East End. And there have been other characters that have been sectioned, but yeah, I mean, it's a real debate even with the family. Like you see great scenes of like Lola and Patrick and Kim talking about what's the right thing to do. In this case, it's really hard because Cherie probably just, because she's seen it. I mean, to me, it feels like there could be a happy medium between keeping him at home, where he is obviously a danger to himself now, or just, taking him away. And she said the last time it broke him. So it's kind of, and also that they had the pact that she would never let him be
again. She feels like she's betraying him, and my heart did break for her, because I know exactly what she's going through. And it's a shame to have to accept that. But at the same time, there's nothing that you can do that's going to help. Like, the best place for Isaac is in hospital. He'll start to take his medication, he'll start to come around and hopefully get better again. And but it's a shame that it had to get to that point.
And we wanted to talk about, because Kieran was talking about that and we've been saying they've really been doing their research. And there's a young man called Antonio Ferreira, and there was an article about him, an interview with him in Digital Spy this week, and he is sort of the consultant for EastEnders. He's from Mind UK, and his story is so similar to Isaac's. It's almost identical. He was studying to be a doctor, and the stress of that, sort of starting when he was 14, but sort of the stress of, studying to be a doctor, academic life was what triggered his schizophrenia. And instead of becoming a doctor, he eventually became, he's a consultant with Mind UK. And so it's amazing to see that there's one man, who's really doing a lot of helping with the storyline, and you can completely tell. I mean, he's doing such a great job with it. So I just thought that was really interesting that they're, going about that. They are just nailing this as far as I can see.
Yeah, they nailed Stacey's postpartum psychosis as well with Mind UK. Mind UK are really integral in the storytelling of issue-based storylines in all the soaps. I think all the soaps turn to them when they go through particular storylines, and I definitely think that without them, the producers and writers would have a real task on their hands.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, and it's just, people like us that we've been through this before with somebody, we are going to notice these things and be able to pick up on them, like all the different conversations, like with, Lola talking to Isaac through the door, and he says, when is this ever? Is this always going to be like this? And that's what people who are going through mental illness feel like, that never going to end,
And it was so heartbreaking, that scene.
All those scenes where Patrick's talking to him through the door and he feels like he's failed him. And I just, huge props to the writers this week. Carrie Andrews, Adya Sen Gupta, who we've had on the show. We had her on a few weeks ago. And Claire Miller did an amazing job of the writing this week.
Definitely.
In their study of how the schizophrenia has specifically affected Isaac, they've obviously done the research because they've come up with very specific things, like Isaac became fixated on Ruby Allen and Johnny Allen and the connection with Paul, his brother, and that. And I think discovering that his brother Paul had been murdered and that he had also had a connection with Johnny Allen, who was a gangland criminal, all of that, Isaac became very fixated on that, and getting the children to go to the allotments or something so that he could get them out of the way or whatever. There was kind of very, very specific sort of things that Isaac sort of took into his head. But they did show him taking a tablet.
Yeah, it seems to be that they fixate on some conspiracy theory, because my mum, when she goes into an episode, she goes through delusional paranoia where she thinks that someone's trying to kill her, and she'll list off like all the names of people in the family, and she'll say to me, is it this person, is it that person? And I'm like, no one's trying to hurt you. And so it's interesting how they seem to fixate on a conspiracy theory that surrounds them, or their family members. Because she also, she thought that someone was out to get my brother as well. So, yeah, it's definitely.
And how is your mother at the moment, Marita? Is your mother fine at the moment, or how is she?
Yeah, she's fine at the moment. She's been the last time she was in hospital was a year ago. So right now she seems to be okay. There's been no signs of, of her getting unwell again. So hopefully she continues like that.
Mental illness there, it's great that soaps like EastEnders are doing so much to sort of educate the wider public about mental illness and to try to break down the stigmas about it. I think showing that Martin and Ruby were very understanding and patient towards Isaac, like after he broke into the house, even after the children disappeared. I mean, you can imagine this week how frantic parents would be if their children disappeared. You could still see that they trusted Isaac hadn't done anything sinister like that.
Yeah, I think Martin's experience with Stacey really helped
He has
him
experience.
to understand that and be compassionate, because I think if it wasn't for that, he probably would have been saying the same things as Phil was saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the scene with Gina and Lily where she finds the kids, and Lily says, you know, it's Mr. Baptiste. I feel so sorry for him because he looks just like Mom did. And I'm like, that was such a great
that
line and callback.
Lily could see it as young as she is, you know. He had
Lily.
the same look in his eyes as Mum, and Mr. Baptiste is not well, you know.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I said that last week. It's in the eyes. You know, when my mum goes through it, I look in her eyes and she's not there. You know, it's like there's a light went off behind her eyes. It's a scary thing to witness.
There's no doubt about it. Like, life is very challenging for so many people, isn't it? I don't think anyone is spared, you know.
No.
And, you know, Marita and I have just been talking about since the beginning of the storyline that it shows how it affects the whole family. And it really is, from Chelsea to Kim, you know, who's always more of a comedic character, but is talking very seriously about it. And she feels very bad for him, but then she's also talking about her kids are scared, you know, because of the loud music, and Isaac is talking to himself. And so that it's like every point of view is touched upon.
Yeah, definitely. Even Phil's point of view, which is the wrong one.
Right.
It's important to show that as well, to show that having that opinion isn't helpful. It just hinders, you know.
Well, and
this idea that if you're mentally ill, you're actually dangerous, or you're dangerous to children, or whatever, you know. You know, it's part of the phobia that surrounds mental illness sometimes, you know.
Definitely.
And we were talking about how, you know, we've seen Lexi and Isaac together, like when they made the volcano, and they seem to really, you know, really like each other. And so, you know, Phil saying that she shouldn't be around Lexi is like, you know, she's a Mitchell, give me a break, you know. Like, he's the most dangerous person she'll ever be around. It's kind of to me, but you know. So,
and I feel so sorry for Lexi at the moment, because you know, the way Cherie is lashing out, and I'm not blaming Cherie either, because I can fully understand her distress, but she's lashing out at you know, Lola, and I just feel very sorry for Lola. I mean,
I do too.
As you said before, Lola wasn't, or Danielle Harold may have said it in an interview, Lola just had no experience prior to meeting Isaac of schizophrenia, or how to handle it, you know. And she knew him coming off his medication some time ago was not a good idea, but he kept him reassuring her, oh, everything will be fine, you know. And she probably, you know, out of loyalty to Isaac at the time, she kind of went along with it, you know. And now she's probably feeling very guilty. But what Cherie is saying to her, I just feel so sorry for Lola at the moment.
I do too.
And I like Lola. I think she's a lovely character as well. Her heart is in the right place. And she and Isaac are a lovely couple in it, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting to me that she was with Jay, who is, you know, we always call him the Prince of the Square. He's pretty much the perfect man, you know, and doesn't seem to kind of, I mean, he's had his past and everything, but, you know, it's kind of, but she's with Isaac now, and she is all in, you know. She's seen him at his low, you know, his kind of worst point with, you know, being ill, and she still wants to be with him. She loves him. So I feel like it's bringing out the best part of Lola right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know? I really love Lola, and I think Danielle's been absolutely incredible throughout this storyline. She's really tugged at my heartstrings, especially that scene, you know, where she was talking to him through the door and she was crying. You know, she played that brilliantly. So she did.
I mean,
amazing actress. You know?
Yeah, the acting for the whole ensemble has just been incredible. Like Suzette Llewellyn, I think I gave her one of my performances of the week last week, because she's just, I mean, the frantic and the anger and the sadness. I mean, she's got all the emotions, and just being so terrified for him, but being angry too, because she doesn't know what to do. And, you know, she's and she's the one who said, I've seen him like this before. And no, I think she felt like she wasn't listened to, and now everybody's seeing how bad it was for him,
Just feel helpless, don't you?
Yeah.
You can't do anything to, except let the medicine and treatment take its course,
Yeah, and that's all you can do really, is wait for his medication to start kicking in again, and he'll hopefully come around. But I don't know how he's going to feel towards like Lola or Cherie when he does come around, but I'm assuming that he'll be apologetic, even though it's not really his fault. It's just, it happens, and it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds and how it resolutes itself, that storyline.
But I'm really, as hard as this is to watch, I'm just really looking forward to seeing where it goes. And the good thing is he has a whole family of people who love him, and Cherie's not going through this alone. She has Patrick, she has Lola, even though I think they're going to come to a understanding eventually. I think, Cherie.
And Denise and Jack are there as well as very supportive, solid figures, aren't they? I think Denise's heart is in the right place, as is Jack's,
Exactly.
I think they will be supportive as well. But it was terrible that young police officer decided to taser Isaac. Remember, he kind of, I suppose Isaac was there carrying a broken bottle and that, and the policeman had to make a call, but I just wonder.
I know.
I actually wondered why Callum wasn't the cop that was dealing with it, because it would just make more sense to have Callum be part of that as well. Because, for example, I don't know if you've ever watched Home and Away, Kieran.
I have. I used to love it in the early 90s, around the same time as I started watching EastEnders. I loved classic Home and Away.
Yeah, I haven't watched it for a few years, but I love it. But the cops in that show, they're involved in, if there's any storyline that involves police officers, it's always the main character who plays a police officer that is involved in that. So I just think sometimes they don't utilise the fact that Callum's a police officer in the way that they should. I think.
And then sometimes he's at everything. So it's just weird, sometimes he'll show up when Phil is
but Callum must have had a day off.
Yeah, he had a day off. It is too bad because I don't think he would have tased, Isaac.
I don't think so, no.
But it is too bad. I didn't think about that. But
I imagine we'll see Isaac recovering fairly quickly, at least within the soap. Do you remember when Stacey went into the mother and baby unit after she'd had Arthur and the bipolar and all of that?
Yeah.
We did see Stacey very gradually kind of coming back to herself. She was in the right place and that. I'm sure we will. We saw Isaac kind of apparently seeming to take a tablet finally, And Cherie, of course, seemed to think that the moment you take a tablet, she was hugely relieved. But as the doctor said to her, well, these things don't just work overnight. It's a long process. But I do think Isaac is in the right place. We've seen how low he can possibly disintegrate psychologically. And I think we will see him gradually on the way back up. But the suffering and the torment, the psychological torment is really well portrayed.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially since this young man is, advising EastEnders, he's made his way back and is, this very successful, journey now to becoming a mental health professional. So I think we're going to see that arc, which is important to see, to see the downs, but also the hope that's there,
And people kind of downgrade the soaps. The very term soap seems very kind of, frivolous and so on. But people forget these are often very serious dramas and that, and there's huge research and huge acting and huge, good script writing and storytelling that goes into it, and developing characters and acting them brilliantly. Soap is not just kind of lemonade, bubblegum viewing.
It's definitely got the preconceived notions about it from people who just tend to undermine the soaps, and I don't think that's very fair, because as you said, you know, a lot of work goes into them, and you're not going to agree with every storyline, you're not going to like everything that they do, but when they do issue-based storylines, they tend to do them with care and attention to detail, and they really do research and speak to the right people, so they definitely deserve kudos for that.
I mean, Coronation Street was started in 1960, and I mean, that wasn't even a soap for many, many decades. You know what I mean? It only started to be called a soap maybe in the 90s, when we suddenly had Neighbours, Home and Away, Brookside, all of these, you know. And the actor who plays Ken Barlow in Corrie, you know, William Roach, he said once he doesn't like the term soap for Corrie, like it's a continuing drama. And I think, like, within the BBC, like, Kate Oates would be, her title would be Head of Continuing Drama, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
they are
kind of a
continuing
nickname.
dramas,
Yeah. And I personally have not seen a portrayal of mental illness this good in a long time in anything, not just a soap, in any kind of TV show at all. And so that to me is real testament to how well they're doing this, you know, and how emotional, like, you know, I know Marita and I got this week. It's really incredible.
Definitely.
It definitely touched me. I was even talking to my brother during the week about it, you know, and, you know, he was definitely touched as I was by the Isaac storyline and that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. So I think we're just going to wait and see where this goes. I know now Phil's going to be involved with Lexi. I mean, and
Phil's actually taking the place that I thought Ben would have in relation, because remember I said like a while back, I thought that Ben would be the one concerned for Lexi's safety and around Isaac. So,
which is interesting, because this will not be the first battle that Lola and Phil have had. With you know, originally getting custody of Lexi, so it does actually make a lot of sense. And you know,
and I actually think Ben will take Lola's side in it.
I actually think he will too. I mean, Ben has his own struggles, you know, which I think he may be able to see in someone else, you know, not the same struggles, but you know, I do think Ben has mental health issues himself, especially with the life he's had. He definitely has them. And so I think that may put him in a sympathetic light, which would be nice. Actually, I would like
for a change.
I'd like to see that from him. I mean, I think, you know, making Phil the bad guy with Lola would not be a bad thing, because he has been, you know,
before,
and that was kind of something I didn't see coming either, you know.
No, Phil's involvement in it through Raymond, I suppose, you know.
Right.
And then Raymond telling Raymond he was his daddy.
Right. Right. I mean, they have so many like strings of families, you know. Right.
They're all interconnected in some way, you know. It's ingenious the way they do it.
Yeah, it's really cleverly threaded. Like, I'm doing a screenwriting course at the minute, and we're literally been told, you know, that you have a script is broken down. It's like Lego bricks. You do it scene by scene, so it's like, it's really interesting to do this course while watching all of the soaps and things that I do, because it's making me look at them differently. So it's quite interesting.
So would you like to write for the soaps eventually? Like, is that one of the writing projects you would like to take on?
Yeah, that's my dream job, writing for either EastEnders or Emmerdale. I'd love to do that. I mean, I recently had an interview with Hollyoaks for the position of continuity editor, and I was close. Luck with that. Yeah, I've had the interview. I didn't get the job, unfortunately, but I came close to it. But yeah, I'm doing a degree right now in English Lit and creative writing.
Yeah. We were saying that before, like we were talking about Shakespeare and others, you know. I love reading English Lit and French Lit and that, you know. I really love it.
It's very interesting to study, you know, literature and things like that, because it gives you a perspective that you wouldn't have
like
Otherwise,
narratives, and characters are kind of universal, really, aren't they?
yeah,
Storylines are often kind of just variations on a theme, they're universal.
yeah,
They maybe go back thousands of years to the old myths, like good
definitely.
versus evil and so on.
The hero's journey.
Yeah.
Secrets
Yeah,
and lies,
yeah,
everything is secrets and lies to make good drama.
Mm-hmm. And we
yeah,
have so many on the show. I mean,
yeah,
I think the fact that we're all writers too is like, I was really excited for today because we're all kind of seeing how this unfolds or how it could unfold. And that's sort of like every story has an arc, and you sort of have to
yeah.
wait to get to the parts that to get an explanation of what's happening.
Yeah, that's why I don't like to like jump on things straight
Mhm,
away
mhm.
before they've played out, because you don't, some things are easy to predict but others aren't, and you
Yeah,
just don't know where they're going to take it.
yeah,
And EastEnders is very good at kind of confounding our expectations, isn't it?
mhm,
Yeah, definitely. It's
yeah,
definitely my favourite one at the moment in terms of
Yeah,
storyline and plot.
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think they are kind of beating everybody else on definitely on storylining. I really enjoy Corey, but they do more of the kitchen sink, part of it, and then they'll have like one or two big storylines for the year. And I think EastEnders is kind of really nailing it with doing a lot of interweaving storylines and bigger storylines. And part of that is the Chelsea and Gray, and let's kind of move on to that, the Chelsea and Gray and sort of Laura storyline, because we were talking about before the show, we did not see Laura's involvement in this at all. Like none of us did. And that's the
She's a very
fascinating.
strong woman.
Yeah. And we're talking about before the show that, some people were saying that Laura seemed out of character this week. I don't think so at all. I'm wondering what you guys think, because I went back and looked at the meeting that Chantel had with the divorce lawyer, David, who knew Gray before she was killed. And, Gray is talking about how he's the competition, our firm is always talking about you. So Laura obviously knows David. And then we see David meet up with Gray later after Chantel's death and, seems to think something is off. And then Gray figures out that Chantel has met with David, that he knows her. So if Laura and David have not had a conversation about this, I will be shocked.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think we're going to come back to that because
yeah, definitely.
Laura could be Gray's nemesis,
yeah, yeah. And I almost feel like she's trying to do things to provoke him at this point. Like having an open bar, wasn't necessarily to provoke him, but she kept, normally at an office party, if you get that hammered and talk to your boss like that, you don't have a job anymore,
Absolutely.
But she's
Yeah,
like encouraging him almost. Like,
yeah,
It's like she's, trying to, I never thought of that. She's trying to
yeah,
maybe bring him out
yeah,
into the open, to
definitely
goad
make him
him.
show his true colours.
yeah, that's how
Yeah.
that felt to
She's
me.
trying to goad him, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, like, because she is a smart lawyer. She knows they don't really have any evidence yet. If she has suspicions about Gray's, we don't know yet. She may just have a suspicion about Gray being off, but if she thinks that, he killed Chantel or was involved in her death, she can't play her hand. Because
No,
first of all, he might come kill her, so there's that. But also that they don't have any evidence right now. And so
No.
she needs to build a case. And,
yeah, definitely.
as
I think she's like maybe the thing that we just didn't see coming, and she's the one that's going to bring him down,
yeah,
because she knew him before he was on screen,
right.
and obviously she knew him during his marriage with Chantel, so Chantel would have been at these work events, and maybe she would have picked up on the behavioural things between Gray and Chantel, because I think people who have got an eye for certain things can pick up on things a lot more quicker than other people would. And I think maybe, like, Gray's always saying that she's never liked him. Well, maybe she's never liked him because, what was I going to say? Because she's always sensed that
Right.
there's something not right there with him.
Right. Right. And that's kind of my thing too. Like, you know, because she did make some snide comments to Whitney at the party he took her to, you know,
Yeah.
like her outfit and stuff. So I feel like you said, and also she's an attorney. She's a female attorney, and so
Yeah.
she's going to have a sixth sense for people's lying, for their, you know, their
Yeah.
behavior. They have to read people, you know, a lot like psychologists do, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, I thought that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, it was pretty cleverly done.
Yeah.
And I just loved that scene in Ruby's, obviously how Chelsea was able to, you know, be able to make, like, not manipulate Gray into getting that off his face, but she's able to encourage him to have fun and let loose.
Yeah.
And when you let your inhibitions down,
Yeah.
that's when things start to slip. And if you're always putting on like a mask, obviously when you're drunk like that, that's when the mask will start to slip. So I definitely think that that could have been what Laura was trying to do, get Gray to show his true colours in a way.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know, especially when he was talking to her about how he was never made partner. There's usually like a reason. You know, I've got some attorneys in my family, and it's a lot to do with your personality and the way you get along with people, as much as like your ability in the courtroom.
Yeah.
You know, because he did get Whitney off. He kind of looked like a hero, and the fact that he's not been made partner, I think there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, you know.
Definitely.
And I'm sure
Just before. Oh, sorry, Gina. No, just before he killed Chantel last year, there were all those issues that he was on the point of being let go. Isn't that right?
Yes,
You know,
that's
so
right.
his performance was obviously suffering for a while. You know.
Yeah, I mean, he was almost ready to be before that. You know, before. Yeah, he was really kind of on the edge then, which is why I'm a little surprised. Like, I thought Laura was going to say, like, "You're out of here," you know, and the fact that she didn't is making me think she's playing the long game.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but there's something she knows that, or has sensed that we're not seeing.
Yeah, definitely, because her warning Chelsea, like she did, says that she fears for Chelsea's safety, or she wouldn't have took it upon herself to warn Chelsea to stay away from Gray. Well, not just to stay away, to run away as far as possible. I mean, that's a strong statement to make about someone, especially someone that you work with. So
yeah. And we don't know how much she told David, the attorney, because we didn't see the actual conversation. We saw sort of the before and after, where he said, you know, he can't make you stay in a marriage that you don't want to be in. But we kind of don't know the middle part of that. So did she say he was abusive? Did she, you know, I mean, I think there's going to be more of that conversation.
It'd be really interesting if they did a flashback episode to around that time from like Laura's point of view, and if there was anything like going on behind the scenes at the law firm with Gray, that would be quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, I just think there's going to be something, you know, between the two of them. And she's obviously got her eye on Gray now, or maybe she has for a while. And now she's got this bizarre comment on her Facebook that, you know, I'm going to, you know, people like you always get what they deserve, which is going to look, you know, a little funny coming from like a anonymous, you know, Facebook account.
That's right. I'm sure she would be able to guess that, put two and two together, that it is coming from Gray, you know. She knows his temper as well, so I mean.
And I do think, you know, obviously as an attorney, she's going to have a lot more tools at her disposal to, you know, investigate, you know, his behavior. If he keeps doing this kind of stuff, she's going to be able to, you know, to protect.
I wonder if Kieran will be involved as well, because Kieran was kind of very privy to, you know, and he was about to run away with Chantel
Yeah.
before, you know, Gray killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that look that Mitch and Kieran gave Gray when he was playing the sort of grieving widow, when Karen went up and hugged him right after her death, and they both were giving like the evil eyes. So I still think, even after, because we got a few sort of Karen and Mitch and Gray scenes, and I think Mitch still, I don't know, he mentioned the hotel, you know, the B&B last year. I still think Mitch is maybe playing the long game too, to be honest.
I mean, long before Chantel was killed, Mitch definitely suspected. You remember he said to Karen, "There's just something not right with that boy."
Yeah.
I suspect, you know, I think he suspected that Chantel was being abused, you know, physically and psychologically. You know, he definitely knew. And Karen seemed oblivious and still is, you know.
Yeah, definitely think that Mitch has been on to him for a while in terms of just picking up on there's been something off about him, because I think he's always thought he's just too good to be true.
Yeah, and that brilliant, I mean, that brilliant episode was Chantel's death. I mean, I just thought that whole episode was so brilliant. But we've talked about before that scene right before she leaves with Gray, and he knows there's something wrong, but he can't pinpoint it, and she wants to tell him, but she can't say anything. It was like, that was such an amazing moment between Mitch and Chantel, because you knew he had this sense of dread and he didn't know what to do about it. So I still think he's bringing up the B&B was really interesting to me, because I'm like, okay, that was the night of Chantel's death. Is he bringing that up for a reason? And when he says, do you even think about her at all? And I don't know. I feel like he's kind of got his you know, radar up still.
It's plausible. Yeah.
It's just, that's my take on it. Or because Karen seems a little bit upset. I know she's giving her blessing, but she seems a little bit like, wow, Chelsea's living there, you know. And it might
did say to Gray, it's a little, you know, she said, we do want you to be happy, but it might be confusing for the children, you know.
Yeah. And it hasn't even been a year, you know, it was last September. So, you know, you know, when you think about it, it seems like a long time that he hasn't.
So terms, it's a long time, but
right. But in real terms,
it's
not. You know, it was well after lockdown and everything else. So I think she's even kind of feeling uncomfortable for a different reason, you know.
She saw Gray kind of losing his temper. Do you remember the other day? Like more and more people, like the late Kush, but also with now Karen, you know, people have seen Gray kind of snapping dangerously, you know.
Right. And she's trying to put it off like, oh, it's a hangover kind of thing. But, you know, she's seen him snap. Whitney's seen him snap. I mean, I think we're getting set up for a big fall. I'm wondering if his fall is. I kind of thought it would be Christmas. Now I wonder if it's going to be September, because that will be the anniversary.
The anniversary of her death.
But I feel like it's going to get more and more amped up. Even when Chelsea broke the plate with the birthday cake. I was like, oh my God, he's going to come home and kill her, you know, because that's the level of suspense that they're. You know, because with Chantel, it used to be she broke up glass or whatever. You know, it was some stupid thing where he would just go off.
Very clever of Chelsea to put it back in the fridge and so that it would fall out when it was opened.
Yeah, she's no fool.
Very clever.
You know? So she's a lot, you know, savvier and more manipulative than Chantel was. So I think this is going to be interesting to see. But I'm really enjoying it. I do think they have interesting chemistry. Like, they have good chemistry. And so when I think Chelsea figures out the truth, that's going to be amazing. I don't think they're going to have him kill Chelsea. I really hope not. That's where I hope they don't go with this.
No, I think it's going to be like similar to Chantel, except have a different outcome.
Yeah, you know, I think that would be perfect, to be honest.
And try to kill Laura, perhaps, you know.
I could actually kill Laura. You know,
I don't think he will, but I think he may try to, you know.
It could go either way. I hope he may try to, and then other people get involved. And like I said, she has more ways to protect herself. You know, a lot more ways to. You know, because she's going to do some research on whoever left that, if she probably knows who it is, but even so, she could track,
Yeah.
where that comment came from and everything. So she has a lot more tools at her disposal, she already doesn't like him. And so I think it's all fascinating. I think it's getting back up to like really good storytelling with that storyline.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm really enjoying that.
I think it could be devastating though for the Carters and for the Taylors when it all comes out. Like the Grays killed Tina, he's killed Chantel,
And Kush as
devastation for
well,
Whitney.
Martin, Whitney, Sonia, when Kush, the truth all comes out. Martin's probably gonna feel so guilty.
Yeah.
In a way, I think, even though it's not his fault at all, but just in the same way that Mick and Shirley's gonna feel guilt, and Karen and Mitch are gonna feel guilt. The blame falls at Gray's feet, not theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, but I just think, everybody will. I mean, Mitch will, because he knew there was something wrong.
Yeah,
Can't
definitely
really put his finger on it, and it's going to be completely devastating. I mean, poor
I
Karen.
think that Mitch is he's gonna take it the hardest. I think it's gonna be like a downward spiral for him when the truth comes out. I think we're gonna see him really, really struggle with that, because he's gonna feel responsible for it.
He's out of her life for a long time, when Karen was bringing Chantel up on her own,
Right. And that, he's become really a great father in a lot of ways, and and really sensed several times that you can tell Daddy, you can tell me, and she just even when they were at the B&B, she came so close to telling him, and then said she just missed the kids. So he thought, oh, I'm doing the right thing by going to get the kids, not knowing that was the worst thing, because then Ray could come and get her and the kids. So I think he's just going to feel completely devastated.
Yeah, definitely.
So the fallout is going to be terrible, but I am looking forward to him getting his day.
Come up and share. I'm really looking forward to the scenes, because I'm sure they're going to be explosive scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really looking forward to all that, and it feels like it's really ramping up again. And I loved speaking of Secrets and Lies, all the Carter stuff. I loved it this week. I'm just, like Marita and I have been saying, that the Nancy and Frankie dynamic, we love Frankie with the Carters. So this is really going to jeopardize that relationship, I feel like, and I'm a bit worried about that one,
Me too. I'm really worried. As I said earlier, it's going to put Mick in a very awkward position when it comes out, because as we know, Linda is going to take Nancy's side in it. So I'm thinking that Mick's going to take Frankie's side in it, and it's going to cause a rift in the family, and it's going to lead to more conflict, to more drama, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and where it's going to leave Mick and Frankie and Zach as well, because he has part in it, and it's going to be interesting to see when that comes to light. But I just think that it's kind of surprising that they went with that route, because I was assuming they were going to have like a love triangle between Nancy, Zach and Frankie, but this is just like worse than that, to be honest.
A lot worse. That's what we thought, there would be a love triangle, but this is not what we were anticipating.
I thought that too, actually, that it might be a love triangle. Zach, Nancy and Frankie, but it doesn't seem that way now.
No. And we did get the comedic scenes, like we got Zach in an apron, like serving Nancy dinner and trying to get her to laugh, and now Linda's offering Zach shifts at the bar, at the Vic, so that's
and he's going to be around more permanently, more regularly. I actually do think there is still a chance that there'll be something between him and Frankie as well.
Yeah.
Because who knows how long they're going to keep that secret for, and you know, maybe Frankie's going to end up going to him for comfort in some way, and who knows how it's going to play out. Because I do think there is a spark between him and Frankie as well as him and Nancy, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. Actually, I think there's a little more of one. Nancy's just gone through a divorce. I mean, just, a week ago, and I don't think is really ready for what.
No, definitely not.
For it. But I think Frankie and he have really good chemistry. I do think, like we said last week, we think Zach's probably going to cover for Frankie.
Definitely
maybe initially
think that as well.
Yeah. So that'll all be interesting to see. And I just think putting Frankie with the Carters has been a stroke of genius. So I don't want that to fall by the wayside.
No.
I still want her to be involved. So I hope that, I do think Mega's going to take her side.
Yeah, I definitely do as well, because it's going to be, like I said, a massive blow for Linda and Nancy. If Mick takes Frankie's side in that.
Yeah. And I mean, I also kind of wonder, Sharon's involvement, like when she finds out about Zach, is she going to let him, she's going to been a 3 strikes you're out girl, him. And so what's that going to do to their relationship, which I really like. I love Sharon as an older sister. I loved her with Vicky when Vicky came back, to the square. And so that's going to be interesting for me.
I really, really love their dynamic as well. I mean, I really like Zach. I think he's a great character, a great addition to the show, and I've really enjoyed having him around. And I even like that he struck up a friendship with Martin as well.
Yeah.
The wake of Cush's death as well, Zach and Martin, they're a similar age group and so on.
Yeah.
Zach reminds me of Alfie Moon in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Or even like sort of a young Den or a Dennis Rickman.
Yeah.
He does have that kind of vibe as well. So I am really, really looking forward to where this goes, although a little terrified.
As always, we're always on edge.
We're on edge.
Excited, but also nervous.
And then we have Kat and Phil, and I really liked their scenes this week, although Phil was not my favorite person this week. I usually defend Phil, but
you're usually defending Phil.
I'm usually defending Phil, but this week I was like, because we got the scene with Ben and Kathy, which I really like. There's, we don't get enough Ben and Kathy,
No.
So we kind of get Ben talking to Callum about how he wants Simon's number, Paul's killer, and we are coming up on the 5th anniversary of Paul's death. So that's going to obviously play into next week. We know that. So, I like their scene together, but then Phil had to come in and, be a jerk. And so even I'm not defending Phil this week. So just to, but then also the stuff with, that we talked about before with Lexi and not even trying to understand that, Isaac might be someone that Lexi really loves. I might be struggling right now. And so,
have a bit of compassion. I thought Kat would have called him out on it, but she didn't.
I think she's trying to pick her battles with Phil, to be honest. And there are so many, to be picked.
That's
I think
true.
the whole Raymond thing, she's trying to because I guess Richie's taking up Raymond's case again. Poor Richie. Woman really earns her money, that woman.
She does.
So she's doing that. So I think she's trying to pick which battle to deal with Kat.
With Phil it is a landmine, to be fair.
It really is. But I love their scenes in the laundrette. I love that dynamic, them owning the laundrette, Jean, sort of talking to Phil about, going to Paris and all that.
It was funny when Phil said to Kat, "What is she on?" And Kat goes, "Lithium."
Yeah.
I loved that line. It was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, Phil doesn't
Very
understand.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, very funny.
Phil just doesn't.
I love those lines, those comedic lines that they have.
Yeah.
Especially with the Mitchells and the Slaters,
Yeah.
I love a good one-liner.
And we really needed that this week because
Yeah.
it was just so heavy a lot of the time. But, we did sort of get, as we said, the Phil kind of adopting Tommy, getting him, his interest in football, which is nice. Phil, like we always say here, Phil is great with little kids. And then when they turn about 15, all hell breaks loose,
Yeah, exactly. So,
which I think is going to happen probably with Tommy, probably with
yeah,
Raymond,
probably.
I think, eventually his e-tickets run out, or Phil. So, but I love him with Kat. I think Kat is, like we said, she's the woman for him. So hopefully she can turn him around on some of this stuff,
I definitely think there's potential there for her to bring out his more softer side, because she's already doing that.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Children and that.
Yeah, she has quite a bit, already. And usually I can find a way to defend him, but this week was like, and look, I think he has every right to still be mad at Callum. He does. He absolutely does.
Yeah.
We've said that a million times here, but like they weren't even talking about Callum, so like you don't need to bring it up every 2 seconds. And
Yeah.
in the calf, it was a little much, I thought. So I do think he's being a little ridiculous now, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think that he likes to hold a grudge, Phil.
Yeah, he loves it.
Yeah.
He loves it. Yeah.
Like with Callum being a grass, discovering that he was kind of, working in cahoots with that police sergeant, all of that. Phil is not letting go of that grudge very easily at the moment,
No, definitely not.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we've said here many times we don't blame him, and yet it's like corroding him at this point. And again, like I'm sure you remember the Kate Mitchell storyline. Phil married the woman who was sent to take him down. The police.
Yeah.
Woman. I mean, he married like the ultimate grass.
Yeah, exactly.
Kate, I remember that.
Yeah, Kate.
Yeah, I wish somebody would bring that up.
Yeah, and I wish it would be Kat, because she was at their wedding.
Yeah.
I went back. I went back and looked at Kate and Phil's wedding, and just said, okay, who was there who would remember when this whole police storyline started? Like, who was around who would remember? And Billy was there. I thought, okay, but Kat was there.
Yeah.
And how perfect would that be for her to
Kat brought that up. Yeah, I definitely think that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Because it's a direct parallel.
Yeah.
To that storyline, and it doesn't make sense for no one to mention it to Phil.
Yeah, especially when Thompson said that he was close with a female colleague who got too close to Phil, and that's why he was close to Phil. Who else could that be except Marsden, or Kate? So, I always thought Kate Mitchell would come back. That was my wish, because I loved Kate, as a character.
Yeah, I would like to see her come back. That would be quite interesting.
Yeah, that would be great. And
definitely, it would be great.
And have Phil forgive her or something, and then maybe move on with your,
Yeah. With his vendetta for the police.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's getting a bit long in the tooth for that now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that, all of that stuff should just be left in the past, and he should just focus on moving on and being a family man. And I mean, of course, he's still going to do whatever he does business-wise, but I think that the hardened criminal stuff should be left to the hardened criminals.
Yeah, I think a new generation, like leave it to the Panesars, or or just
like even as we've said before, to the shelves at stands and the tubs of the world.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's time for I think they can still be involved in the edgy, because they've always been the petty criminals. But I just think it's time for. I think Phil and Callum will probably bury the hatchet, but I'm not sure what the catalyst is going to be. I mean, maybe the Paul storyline, which I think they're going to get.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be Ben.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'll probably be the Paul storyline, maybe. That's where it looks like it's going, but we just don't know yet, you know.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting too. The couple scenes that I loved this week that I think are probably getting overshadowed a little bit by all the big storylines is the Suki and Honey friendship.
Yeah.
And Adia Sengupta, who we had on a few weeks ago, was saying that Suki is her favorite character to write for. Mm-hmm. And it definitely shows, because she wrote that beautiful scene, actually no dialogue, of Suki being really not eating, not sleeping,
yeah,
really torturing herself, and Honey leaving that pie by her.
Yes, that was a lovely scene.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
No dialogue, as you said,
Mm-hmm. Just
Suki didn't even know at the time who had delivered it. Maybe she had her suspicions, but she accepted it in good grace. And was quite moved when she discovered it was Honey who had left it. Her initial antagonism towards Honey for reopening the shop kind of melted.
Right, and I sort of. Yeah, it did, and I would love to see them have a friendship. I think they have. I think
Emma, definitely.
Like Emma and Balvinder are such great actresses, and they did that scene, with just facial expressions and that little smile when Emma walked away when she dropped the pie off, and Suki seeing some moment of kindness. She didn't know who what it came from.
I definitely think that we're seeing so many layers to Suki now, and I'm really enjoying it. It's so jarring to go from, say for example, the scene that Atia wrote with her and Phil when Phil smashed up the call centre. What Suki was like then compared to the Suki that we're seeing now. It's there's been very much so peeling back the layers of her, and you can tell that she's feeling very guilty over Jax's death, and it's eating her up inside, and that's how she can't eat. It's she's like self-harming by not eating. So it's a very interesting layer that we're seeing to that character.
Terrible guilt,
Yeah.
The decision to send him to prison.
Yeah. Something that I didn't think she was capable of at first.
Neither, but she seems to be kind of showing a more compassionate, softer side to her now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and too, like, she says, I don't deserve, she said this before, I don't deserve kindness, I don't deserve a treat. When Honey says you should treat yourself, but she gives like the candy bars for the kids, which is a very, she's a very tight-fisted woman usually, and and that was a big gesture for her.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And she was really touched, and then when she, Honey says, well, you should treat yourself, and she's like, I don't deserve anything.
I mean, we're definitely leading up to some sort of I don't know what, breakdown or something with Suki, like Suki, where she might try to harm herself or something like that. It definitely seems it's going that way.
Certainly does, self-harm.
And the boys are, I mean, Vinny is kind of trying his best, God bless him, to look after her, but he's not in a great place either right now. And then Kieran is kind of out and about, and he's worried about her, but they just have their own issues right now. And and that kind of leads us to Ash and Peter, where Ash could really use someone to lean on, and Peter's just not there for her. And I'm glad they explained it, because kind of like in the first episode, Kathy's saying, you're like selfish, just like your father, and you're shallow, all the stuff that we've been saying the last year and a half, basically. But that he kind of, and that he and Bobby are kind of bickering, but that, by the second episode, he gets to explain to Ash, this is why.
Yeah, I thought that was why he was being standoffish, was because it was bringing up the Lucy situation.
Yeah.
I definitely knew that's what that was, and so it made me feel a bit sorry for him.
Yeah.
In terms of that, because it, you know, he lost his twin sister, and probably doesn't know what to say to Ash to make her feel better, because he doesn't even know himself how to process that grief that he has for Lucy. So definitely thought that was in character, really, and it was understandable.
Yeah.
So showing a different side to Peter, you know, again, a more nuanced side, nicer side to Peter. He has his own demons, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and that he's never really kind of addressed them since he's been on the square. In the last 2 weeks, he really has been with, you know, we were talking about the scene with Dana where he says, you know, I couldn't forgive him, but now I can, and what it did to him. And then talking to Ash about, you know, not being able to really face, you know, that's her brother and he went through this something similar, and it's really hard for him to face all this, you know, was a really big step for him, you know, because he's talking to somebody he's dating now. And so, you know, we've been asking for layers for Peter for a long time now, and
we are finally getting them, it seems. Yeah,
which is really good. So I thought their scenes together were really good. I mean, we love the Panesars here, so it's, if we even get a little bit of them, I think we're getting a big week with them next week. With that, you know,
Is it not? It's the funeral next week,
and
I believe
so. Yeah.
And there's the big stuff with Ben and Callum next week as well.
I believe so. Yeah, I think it's all going to kind of converge, which you can kind of see it ramping up, you know, since it will be the anniversary of Paul's death, you know, 5th anniversary. And
I'm really looking forward to those scenes and those episodes.
Yeah.
But you know, there again, they've done their research very well. The whole insight into a Sikh funeral or funeral traditions, like the house covered in white and the family dressed in white. You know, for us, black is the color of mourning and death, whereas in a lot of cultures, like their cultures, it's white, you know. And EastEnders has always been very good to portray the multicultural diversity of London and of Britain generally. You know?
Right.
I really love seeing that, because it's not something that I'm familiar with. So, you know, it's educational for me in terms to see, you know, how they deal with death and things like
they've shown Punjabi traditional weddings and, you know, or the time, when was it? You know, that other family that were in it, I think they were Pakistani. You know, the father was the postman. My mind is just gone blank.
Masood and Zainab.
Masood. Do you remember Masood's son, Christian?
Saeed and Christian,
was turned out to be gay, but they were showing like his wedding preparations in detail.
That storyline was amazing. I loved that storyline. And I remember when they were showing old episodes during lockdown, they showed that wedding episode last year. Again, it was really, really good, that episode. I really like when they do things like that. Just like I like the touches of when, you know, a character dies in the square and we see like the horses with the, I mean, because that seems to be like a London thing, because that's not something that, you know, that I see where I live. So
Me neither, Marita, because I grew up in the south, you know, and there wasn't a small rural town, you know, so we didn't have that multiculturalism. But when I moved to Dublin 17 years ago, you suddenly see how multicultural Ireland has become, you know. And Dr. Legg's funeral, you know, as you said, the Jewish funeral traditions, you know, or they've shown bar mitzvahs in the past. Do you remember Nigel in the 90s? His partner after Debbie's death was a Jewish lady,
really?
you know, separated from her husband, and they showed her son's bar mitzvah, you know.
I really like when they do that, because that's them, you know, tipping their hat to the fact that there is a multicultural, diverse, you know,
so many
population.
British people are living between two cultures in a sense, you know. They're hybrid, you know, they're spanning two cultures. Or sometimes the Panesars will speak to each other in their own language, you know.
I love when they do that.
Because it's authentic, And I love the fact that they do that and they don't subtitle it as well, because like, you know, that's just the way it is. You know, if you don't understand what people are saying, that's just the way it is in life. So,
Yeah, and you can really get, I mean, that's how good the actors are in the Panestar Family. You can really tell, you don't need subtitles because you can tell the gist of what they're saying by their tone and their
their body language.
Yeah, exactly. So they're so good. It doesn't, you know, I like that they don't do subtitles and that they, you know, I always say I'm obsessed with the way Suki says the kids' names because it's beautiful pronunciation, and I love it. You know, and her as a character. I mean, you know, to have a family of color be such a prominent family after 2 years of being on the air is fantastic. It kind of reminds me of the Trumans when they came on and immediately became a really big family, and were one of my favorite families. So I love that they're so prominent.
Yeah, I love the Panesars. I love Kira. I love Vinny. I love Suki. And Ash. I love their whole dynamic, and we're getting to see like the inner workings of the family, and you know, I think Kira and Suki have a very complex, interesting dynamic, kind of similar to Phil and Ben. In some ways. I do. I really enjoyed those scenes that we get with them. And is it true that the patriarchal character of that family's coming into it?
Yeah, I think I've read articles and that he is coming on eventually. So that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, there is Suki's husband, is it?
Yeah, I can't wait to see what the dynamic is between Suki and her husband, because she's a very strong, you know, matriarch. She's a very strong character, and so I definitely don't see them having a dynamic where he has any sort of hold over her, because it doesn't seem that she's the type of person that would allow that.
No, and you know, we know that he's in prison not because he's a criminal, but because he tried to save the family.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, being burned out. So that's going to be really interesting to see, sort of, you know, their dynamic, his dynamic with the kids as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that. So the one storyline that we sort of the final one that we kind of haven't touched on is the whole Billy being homeless.
That was really a shock.
Yeah, and
I wasn't expecting that at all.
No.
Yeah. And they did sort of build it up where, like, you know, Phil again is being kind of horrible this week and saying, you know, Billy, you need to take a shower.
Yeah.
And then Jay sort of said something about it. And they were talking in the market. And I loved all the sort of Terry and Billy scenes. I thought, you know, we loved Terry.
Yeah, they were great.
And I thought their banter was amazing on Friday. But, you know, Terry was kind of giving him advice, like, you gotta, you know, kind of fake it to make it and have confidence, and you know, teaching him kind of how to sell on the market. And even when he won the game, you know, in the VIC, it's like, you won fair and square, you got to believe in yourself. And so, and then when we see him go to the car lot, it's like, wow, I was not expecting that. So
yeah, I really feel for him.
Yeah,
me too. Yeah, I wonder, will he and Honey ever get back together? You know, it reminds me of Corrie in the 90s, all the years that Ken and Deirdre were separated.
That's
we're always wondering if they get back together. And eventually they did. They were kind of an iconic couple. And I still feel Billy and Honey belong together. And I still hope.
I think they will get back together. I do. Because I don't think we don't see much of Jay and Honey as a couple on screen. And but we haven't really seen enough of them to buy into it. I've never bought into them as a couple or their relationship. So I definitely think that there's definitely potential there for a reunion. I think that Honey's going to be the one to help Billy. I think she's going to be the one who finds out about it first. So that'll be interesting. But it really is. It's a shame, and I'm thinking, obviously, he's staying in the car lot. Is Jay going to find out? Is Ben going to find out?
Yeah.
Somebody is bound to find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be. I mean, because Jay and Ben are still working there, so they have to,
Yeah,
find some evidence of somebody being
yeah,
there overnight. Um, and I'm with you. I think I was not as opposed to Jay and Honey being together as everybody else was. I think they were good for each other at the time. Like I think Honey needed somebody like Jay, who's just a prince, among men, and Jay
yeah,
needed somebody like Honey who appreciated him, and Lola kind of didn't at the end. She cheated on
yeah.
him, and so I think it was a good short-term relationship. I don't see it long-term being a thing.
No.
So I think Billy and Honey won. Especially we see more, like we saw Will and Janet this week, and we saw Billy being a good dad again.
Yeah,
But he is a really good dad to his kids, especially to Janet. And so I think we're going to see like that sort of bring them together.
yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely think so as well. And I'm still gonna ride that Whitney and Jay train for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I know that people are dead set, like, no, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I will just stay on it.
Well, we all have our ships. We want.
Yeah, we all have our crosses to bear.
Yeah, we do.
And that's one of mine.
Yeah, I think Whitney should be single for a very long time.
I remember someone replying to me on Twitter, basically saying, like, I'll be waiting a long time for that to happen. It's never going to happen. And I replied saying, well, if I ever work on EastEnders, it might.
Yeah.
Never know. Whitney has had such bad luck with men, hasn't she? Over
Yeah,
the last
that's what I
few
mean. Like, Jay's such a pure soul. He's such a good guy and like family guy, and he wants his own family. And Shona's always saying about how she wants Whitney to have her own family as well. And I just think that they would be a good couple. And I'll just
ideal,
I'll go with that forever until it
love
happens.
that as well. Yeah, Whitney deserves a bit of happiness,
Yeah, exactly. She deserves a nice guy. Like Callum was a really lovely, nice guy, but that was never going to work out. So I definitely think she deserves to be with someone like Jay.
Somebody kind and solid and sensible. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though she's been a bit crazy this year, I love Whitney. I've always loved her. I've always wanted her to settle down and have a family.
Very kind to Gray, she was good friends with Chantel, and after Chantel's death, she was trying to be as supportive as possible to Gray, and she seemed to really love the children, Mac and Mia and so on,
I mean, that shows what type of person Whitney is. Whitney has always been a good-hearted person. I just
very
think,
caring person,
yeah, I think they've just took her down a bit of a strange road this year, to be honest.
They have really, yeah.
Yeah, I do think she has her own issues to work on.
Yeah.
Because I do think, Lee was a good guy.
Lee, yeah.
So I do think she's got this thing with men where she kind of, because Tiffany's been in trouble, and she kind of focused on her life with Callum and didn't really, help her that much with that. So I don't know. I think her thing with men is not that healthy, and I don't know that Jay would benefit from that either. I think she needs.
I know you're against it, yeah.
No, it's not that I'm against it. I just think that she needs to work herself out with men.
Yeah, I definitely think that she needs to work on herself.
Yeah.
Before she enters another relationship, because where she's at right now mentally, she's not in a good place at all.
Yeah.
The whole thing with Kush was very sudden, even by soap standards. They just suddenly became this.
Yeah.
And they worked as a couple. He would have been a very nice partner.
Yeah, he would have been.
If he'd survived.
Yeah. It's just that
but it was a bit sudden.
Yeah.
She needs to take a step back, as you say, from men.
Yeah. And she also, I feel like, because we knew Davude was leaving, then we kind of never got invested in it, and like you said, she just jumps into these things.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm thinking in like long term, because Whitney and Jay are long stay characters. They've been in the show for several years. I imagine they're going to be in the show for several years to come. So
Yeah.
I don't particularly mean right now, because Whitney is not in the place
No.
to be in a relationship with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. So, Kieran, we're going to ask you to do dialogue and performance. I know you listen every week, so if you're ready to join us with this, to do, kind of pick your favorite dialogue and performance. So I found it really hard to kind of go into, like, because it was all so good. Like, all the Truman dialogue was amazing. But I think I am going to pick the scene with Lola and Isaac where she's talking to him through the door and he says, is it always going to be like this? Because it just felt like such natural, realistic dialogue.
That was beautiful dialogue, it was certainly one of
Yeah.
my favorites, I think for me too, Gina, it would be some of the dialogue around the whole storyline with Isaac this week, I think the scenes with Cherie and Isaac where she was, I'm not sure if that was the week just gone, where she was coaxing him to take the tablet, and then when he appeared to take it, she was saying, "Oh, thank you, God." She was just so desperate and so frantic and so on.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the Isaac, Cherie, and Patrick. Patrick's dialogue with Isaac, was really moving as well. I mean, Patrick didn't know until recently that Isaac was his son. Isaac didn't know,
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that father-son thing where they're just discovering each other, I think the dialogue between the two of them, Isaac and Patrick, was very moving as well.
Yeah.
That should be my highlight, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very moving.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it definitely in the same light as well. The Trumans were spectacular this week. We really did get to see, so many layers and the dynamics between them. And I just think that the dialogue between Isaac and Lola was really, really moving, and it really struck a chord with me. That scene where they were talking through the door, I cried when I watched that. It was really touching. And so I would say that's my favourite dialogue of the week for sure, definitely.
Yeah, and performance, sort of same thing, that Stevie and Danielle and Suzette, who plays Cherie, and Rudolph. I just thought that Tamika, I thought all the Trumans, that it was an ensemble performance.
Truly was. Yeah.
I agree with you. I've definitely, the entirety of the Trumans this week deserve performance of the week.
Yeah, I don't think, because I was tempted to sort of give it to Stevie, but we've done that in the past, and I think it was just all of them working together, that made it such an incredible, and they feel like a family, and Lola feels like part of their family. So that was incredible.
Blended families,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like a great blended family, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Lexi in this situation. I think that's going to be interesting. Sometimes kids handle these things better,
Yeah, definitely.
Rudolph Walker, who plays Patrick, is great. He's a great actor. He got that Commander or Order of the British Empire Award recently.
That's right.
It's a very youthful 80-year-old man, isn't he?
Yeah, 84.
He
is. Amazing, And since he got the stroke, Isaac has been more protective and even more sort of loving towards him, and that I love all of that dynamic,
Yeah, I do too. I love that they've bonded, because Isaac didn't really take it well at first, and I love that they've got to a place now where they really care about each other.
They really do, It's a whole lovely dynamic,
Yeah, and they've really built up the family really beautifully, like with Cherie coming in, and then Isaac, sort of the reveal. I don't know how they did the reveal with Paul not being Isaac or Patrick's son. They had that whole storyline where they knew that one of the sons wasn't really Patrick's, and you thought it was going to be Anthony, and it turned out to be to be Paul. So yeah, I thought they really did. They've done a great job building them up, and I'm just so happy to see the Trumans like front and center again. That's just really been great.
I'd love to see Anthony coming back. Dr. Anthony.
Yeah.
it
No,
would be
wouldn't that be
great to
lovely
see
as well?
him back,
Yeah.
because he's got history with Cat as well, and
Yes.
it would be interesting to see him on the square again.
And he was a lovely character, you know. He and
Yeah.
Paul were such a contrast, you know.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what made them really interesting, was that, you know, they were so
Jekyll and Hyde
different.
kind
Yeah.
of.
Mhm.
And then Paul was with Janine. Do you remember when just
Yeah,
up to
oh
the
my
time
God.
Mhm.
Janine
Barry,
and
you know,
Paul were
They
quite,
were
that was
great.
quite the dynamic.
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
Paul was kind of racked with guilt and crying after he realised Janine had killed Barry, you know. He was
Yeah,
racked
he
with guilt.
took
He
that
couldn't
really
forgive her.
bad. Yeah, I'll never forget that scene where he goes for her in the Vic. He
Mhm.
just sees red and he starts smashing glasses, and she's just sat there with a smirk on her face, and it's like, that's one of the most memorable EastEnders scenes for me.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
Janine coming back is great. She has so much
Yeah.
history and so many
Yeah.
connections with so many of the characters,
Yeah,
you know.
I'm really excited to see Janine again.
Mhm.
She's one of my all-time favourite soap villains, soap
Absolutely.
antagonists.
And yet she's kind of nuanced, but not very nuanced, you know.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, will she be just a cardboard cutout, stereotypical evil character again, or will she be in any way different or more mature, you
Yeah.
know, or
Yeah, it's
will life have changed her?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
will be interesting to see, because I mean, when she left, she literally got away with murder,
Yeah.
and she pinned it on a young innocent woman. So it will be interesting to see what she's like when she's back. I think the amount of time she's got away with murder, it probably makes her think that she's invincible. So it makes her do things that, you know, are just nuts, really.
Yeah. Well, this has been the shortest 2 hours we've ever done. It's,
Wow.
and we were just saying that, like, this has been so great to have you on, because we're coming up
Thank you.
on our 6 months of doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And you're our first, you know, listener guest, and it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for having me on. It's been the shortest few hours I've ever
I
gone
know.
through as well. And it's been good fun discussing EastEnders past, present and future. You know, I've really enjoyed it, Gina. And apart from being on it this evening, I love listening to it every week. I mean, there's your podcast and one other about EastEnders that I listen to, and both podcasts bring something very different to the table, you know. I think you go into a lot more detail on past storylines and particular actors and script writers and so on, you know.
Yeah.
So I love your analysis every week of EastEnders, you know, and long may it continue. I'll certainly keep listening and watching on YouTube and promoting it to people, you know. My brother is going to be a new fan from this week, you know.
Oh, so much.
That's great. Thank you so much. We
All about it.
really
I mean,
appreciate
he's a
that.
fan of EastEnders as well, going back to 1985, you know.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, and we would love to have you on again if you ever.
Definitely.
I would love to. Thank you, Gina. I'd love to be on again anytime. Just, you know where I am on Twitter.
Yeah.
Contact me anytime. Yeah, I'd love to come on again, you know, and thank you for having me. It's been great fun, very enjoyable, you know.
Well, thank you so much, guys, everyone. And we are coming up on our 6 months, and we're going to have a lot of great stuff for you coming up. We're going to have another listener guest on August 1st. Hannah's coming on. Marita's going to be doing some blogging for us this next weekend.
Yeah, I'll be seeing Max at the football. Well, Max and Jake Wood and Aaron Sidwell, Matt Lisbankus, and Dean Gaffney is going to be there as well.
Nice.
There's going to be quite a few EastEnders faces at the football match, and I'm going to try and get them to say a quick hello to the camera.
And were you filming something recently as well, Marita, last week? What was that? Was it some award ceremony or?
No,
no. I was at a charity football match run by, you know, Aaron from Emmerdale, Danny Miller.
Oh, I do know Aaron, yeah, because I used to watch. He's a gay character in it. She's one of the Jingles.
He is,
He's Chaz's son,
Yeah, Chaz's son. The actor that plays him he runs his own bereavement charity, and they do charity football matches every summer. So me and my friends always go down for them, and it's a good day out, and we get to meet Danny, and it's always a good time. So I'm looking forward to doing that with Max and the EastEnders cast this
Brilliant.
weekend, and
Great to meet him.
yeah, I'm
Max
really
Bowden
looking
has been so
forward.
busy, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since Max joined EastEnders over 2 years ago, like he's
Yeah.
been hardly ever off screen. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
They've made such great use of Ben and that actor, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's fantastic, well deserved
It is.
to be at the forefront, because I mean, up against Steve, he's just incredible. Like that scene from last week where Ben tore into Phil, that's one of my all-time favourite scenes. I loved that scene so much.
Yeah. So lots to look forward to. We've got a lot coming up. And thank you so much, guys. This has been an incredible episode, and we're going to say goodbye because we've gone well over time, but it's been well worth it.
Yeah, we don't want to get to 5 hours.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you so much, guys, and we will see you next week, and we will have Kieran on again for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Very much. I'd love to. I look forward to next week's episode as well.
All right. Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Guys. Thank you, Kieran. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you very much, Gina.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marita.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you soon.